How many goblins could a goblin gob if a goblin could gob goblins?
Hey gang! Using the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, will get you 10% off any order over $10 at Flipside Gaming. It'll also get you 10% off any orders of singles at Multizone. And it'll get you 10% off most products at Original Magic Art, with the exceptions of some paintings. If these fine sites don't have what you're looking for, you can also consider using my affiliate link when ordering from TCG Player. And if you'd like to join the generic Goblin Gang to support this channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description below. You may also want to know that Flipside Gaming is doing another giveaway, this time for Core Set 2021. By placing an order of $10 or more, or alternatively, you can send a stamped, self-addressed envelope or postcard to the following address. Either of these options will get you entered to win, and please bear in mind, it's one entry per person. The contest will run from June 15th until July 3rd, 2020. Today's game is another multi-zone matchup, with Max playing Bruse and Ikra, keeping a Dragon Skull Summit, Smoldering Marsh, Play of the Game, Sensei's Divining Top, Dragonlord Dromoka, Sunpetal Grove, and Blood Crypt. Dom is keeping God Eternal Rhonas, keeping Azuri's Predation, 4 Forests, Emerald Medallion, and Finale of Devastation. Miguel is playing Omnath, keeping 5 Forests, Birds of Paradise, and Nature's Lore. Last but not least is Seb with Golos, keeping a Firemine Vessel, Rugged Prairie, Breeding Pool, Ancient Tomb, Dromoka the Eternal, Plains, and Drakoseth. Miguel wins a die roll and starts us off. Miguel plays a forest and casts a Birds of Paradise. Max plays a Smoldering Marsh, which comes in tapped. Dom plays a forest. Seb plays a tapped Breeding Pool. Miguel plays a forest and casts Nature's Lore to find a forest card untapped. He shortcuts, using the soon-to-be-found forest card and his birds to cast Farseek to find another land at the same time, and passes. Max plays a Dragon Skull Summit and casts Sensei's Divining Top. Dom plays a forest and casts an Emerald Medallion. Seb plays a Rugged Prairie. Miguel plays a forest and casts Fires of Yavimaya. He then plays a Goblin Bombardment before passing turn. At the end of turn, Max uses his top. Max draws and plays a tapped Sunpetal Grove. Dom plays a forest and casts a Voracious Hydra, where X is 2 because of the Emerald Medallion. As it comes in, he has it fight the Birds of Paradise with the Enter the Battlefield trigger, and passes to Seb. Seb plays an Ancient Tomb, and then loses 2 life as he casts Firemine Vessel. Miguel plays a forest and casts Hull Breach. He thinks about taking out the medallion, but decides to blow up Seb's vessel instead. At the end of turn, Max uses his top. Max plays a tapped Blood Crypt and casts a Kur Tribe Elder. Dom plays a forest and hits Miguel for 2. Seb plays a Plains and loses another 2 life to cast Golos this time. The Super Solemn comes in and lets him go and find a land, and he passes while searching. Miguel plays a forest and casts Reclamation Sage, who enters and blows up Golos. The Sage also has haste from the fires, and Miguel adds Insult to Injury as he hits Seb for 2 now that he has no blockers. During all of this, Max sacrifices Sakura Tribe Elder to go and find a Plains. It's white bordered, and I now have video evidence of how much of a monster Max is. Max draws her turn and casts Cultivate. He finds a snow-covered plains for the field and a forest for his hand. He then plays the forest for his land for turn and casts Elemental Bond. Dom plays a forest and hits Max for 2. He casts Finale of Devastation in his main phase, putting 3 into the X. He goes to find a creature card and passes to Seb as he searches. Seb plays a tapped Path of Ancestry and then casts Skyshroud Claim. He also passes as he goes to find some forest cards. Miguel casts Omnath in his main phase, and Dom settles for a Firehaven Elf, finding a forest at the same time before shuffling up. Miguel then heads to combat, hitting Max for 5 before passing turn. Max taps all but 1 for a Dragonlord Dromoka, and draws from the Elemental Bond trigger as it enters. He then passes, keeping that threatening 1 white mana open. Dom plays a forest, and casts Eternal Witness. As the Witness enters, he returns the Finale to hand, and Dom then drops Beastmaster's Ascension. He goes at Miguel with the Hydra, and swings the Elf at Seb. Both connect, and Dom passes as he finds a die to put on the Ascension. Seb plays a Reflecting Pool and plays Demir's Signet, and then taps more mana for Golos again. He passes as he searches for a land. Miguel draws and casts Skyshroud Claim to find 2 forests. They come in untapped, and Miguel makes 2 elemental tokens with Omnath's landfall triggers. He then heads to combat, swinging the newly made tokens at Max because of the fires of Yavimaya giving them haste. Max takes 10, and then activates his top as Miguel passes turn. Max casts a Seraph of the Scales in his main phase, drawing a card from the Elemental Bond. He then passes. Dom plays a tap Mosswort Bridge and hides away a card. He plays Azuri's Predation, making 6 beast tokens who all come in and fight different targets. Max gains 5 life from the Dromoka, dealing damage, and also makes 2 spirit tokens from the Seraph of Scales afterlife trigger as it dies. Before transitioning phases, Miguel also sacrifices one of the elementals to Goblin Bombardment, dealing 1 to Golos, and then 3 more to Dromoka with Omnath's trigger for seeing an elemental die. Moving to combat, Dom then goes at Max. Dom adds his counters to the Ascension, and Max takes the hit for 5. Seb casts Golos for a 3rd time this game, and goes to find another land. He passes while searching. Miguel plays out an Ogre Battle Driver in his main phase, before playing out a land. This has the elemental token from Omnath coming with +2/+0 in haste, and he goes to combat. He swings the 2 elementals at Dom for 12, and Dom blocks with his beasts that survived. Max plays a swamp and brings in Ikra during his main phase. He draws from the bond trigger, and then passes turn. Dom plays a forest and goes all out at Miguel. He gains 3 more counters on his Ascension, pushing it to that threshold number of 7, which has all of his board gain a static +5/+5. Miguel decides to sacrifice the fires, which pumps his Omnath by +2/+2, making it big enough to block the Farhaven Elf and not die to it. Miguel then takes 14. Dom then activates his Mosswort Bridge in his post-combat main phase, casting his copy of Skyshroud Claim to go and find 2 forest cards. Dom then recasts the finale, putting a good chunk into the X, and goes to find a Green Warden of Marassa. This enters, and it lets him return the finale again to hand, and Dom then passes. Seb taps and draws for turn, sorting his mana out before activating Golos. He exiles his top 3, hitting Chromium the Mutable, a land, and the Ur-Dragon. Seb then plays a land, and he casts his dragons. Seb then taps the rest of his mana to activate Golos again, exiling 3 more cards. This time he hits his copy of Dragonlord Dromoka, his Planeswalker Sarkhan Fireblood, and Vivictus. He casts all 3, and Seb then upticks Sarkhan, discarding 1 and drawing 1. He then passes turn. Miguel draws and plays a mountain, making another elemental token with Omnath. It comes in and gets +2/+0, and Miguel wastes no time swinging his tokens at Seb. Seb blocks like so, which has Seb gaining 5 from Dromoka. With the elementals dying, Miguel uses the Omnath triggers to do the remaining damage needed to take out 3 dragons. He then passes while Max activates his top. Max pays to cast Bruse in his main phase, who enters and draws him a card from the Elemental Bond trigger. He gives Ikra the double strike and lifelink before swinging her at Dom. Dom doesn't block, taking 6 commander damage, and Max gains 6 from the double strike, and then gains another 14 from the 2 Ikra triggers, resolving. Max then discards down to 7, and passes turn. Dom draws and plays a forest. He recasts the finale, putting at least 10 into the X this time, and goes to find another creature card. He grabs Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, and also pumps his board by +10/+10, and gives his creatures haste. Dom then heads to combat with his enormously big creatures, and Kozilek and the Warden go at Max, while Seb gets the Witness and the Hydra. Seb blocks the Witness with the Ur-Dragon, taking the hit from the Hydra, while Max sacrifices some permanents for Kozilek's Annihilator trigger. Max then blocks the Warden with his last remaining Spirit token, and before moving to damage, exiles Kozilek with Anguished Unmaking. He'd much rather take 3 damage as opposed to 20+, and Dom then passes. Seb plays a Bountiful Promenade, and upticks Sarkhan to discard a card and draw a card. He then loses 2 life, and puts to stack a Living Death. Miguel responds as he gains priority, sacrificing Omnath to the Goblin Bombardment and puts his commander to the yard. He deals 1 to Seb with the Bombardment trigger, and then a further 3 with Omnath's Death trigger. They then swap every creature from the yard for every creature on their respective fields, and Dom has his Green Warden get exiled as it goes to the yard, and returns the finale once more to his hand. The creatures then enter, and Miguel has a Rex Sage trigger, and he has it blow up Seb's Steel Hellkite. Seb then plays out another Sarkhan, this time Sarkhan the Mad. He down-ticks the Rakdos Walker by 4, and has his dragons deal their power worth in damage to Miguel. Miguel decides to help the table as he goes out, sacrificing his creatures to the bombardment, and dealing 4 to Dromoka. He then deals the 3 from Omnath going to the bin to finish off the dragon. Even with this reduction in damage, it's still enough to take him out though. Seb then casts Dromoka the Eternal, and passes turn. At the end of turn, Max sacrifices the Elder to go and find a basic. Max casts Bruse Tarl in his main phase, giving Dromoka double strike and lifelink as his commander enters. Max also gives his Seraph Vigilance by paying the 1 white, and then moves to combat, and he gets an Audric trigger, which gives his board Vigilance, double strike, lifelink, and flying. Max then swings his board at Dom, and Dom takes the hit for 24, while Max gains 24. Max then passes turn. Dom draws, and plays a Forest. He casts his 4th finale for the turn where X is 11, and goes to grab a creature. He grabs a Pathrazer of Ulamog, which gets +11/+11 in haste, as does the Farhaven Elf. Both creatures go at Max, whose life gain from the last combat step scared Dom. Max has to resolve the Annihilator trigger first, sacrificing 3 permanents. This has Max putting to his yard Bruse Tarl, Dragonlord Dromoka, and a Snow-Covered Plains. He then doesn't block, taking the hit, and Dom passes. Seb plays a Polluted Delta and keeps the painful lands on the side of the table to not tempt him and lower his life even further. He casts Lurking Predators, and then Dragonlord Silumgar. The dragon enters, and this lets Seb steal Dom's Pathrazer. And Seb then upticks Sarkhan, discarding 1 and drawing 1. Seb then goes to combat, and gets some triggers. He resolves a Vivictus 1 first, hitting Max's Audric, Dom's Medallion, and his own Signet. They sacrifice those permanents, and reveal their top cards, putting to field if it's a permanent. Dom and Seb both get a creature, those creatures being the original Polakranos and Numot respectively. Seb then resolves the Ur-Dragon trigger, drawing 5, and gets to put a permanent out from his hand. It's Mirari's Wake, and Seb then resolves Drakaseth's trigger, dealing 4 to Max, and then resolves Dromoka's bolstering to a lot of his dragons. Max only has the 1 lonely blocker, and it's not enough to stop the dragon army from finishing him off, and with nothing else, Seb passes. Dom casts Vivian's Arcbow in his main phase, and Seb gets a Lurking Predators trigger, which reveals Farseek. Dom then brings out God Eternal Rhonas, and Seb gets another Lurking Predators trigger, revealing a land which he bottoms. Rhonas comes in, and Dom then doubles the power of every creature he controls and gives him Vigilance until the end of turn. He then activates the bow, putting 6 into the X, and discards a forest. He puts out a Reclamation Sage from among the cards he's looking at, who enters and blows up Seb's Mirari's Wake. He then swings what he can at Seb, knowing fully well Seb will just block with 2 dragons. With Silumgar dying, Dom at least gets back his Pathrazer, but he knows he's dead on the crackback from Seb's Flying Lizards, and scoops it up. Game review time. So I think everyone did a pretty decent job this game of doing correct threat assessment, but I do think Max was a bit too easygoing when it came to blocking. I think Miguel had the right idea in mind, taking out Golos as many times as he did, because once you get to a certain amount of mana, Golos is just such a crazy engine with his activated ability that even in Seb's deck, he was still getting crazy amounts of value. Unfortunately for Dom, he drew a ton of forest this game, and he didn't even cast that many ramp spells beyond the Skyshroud Claim, and he wasn't really able to do very much despite the fact that he cast Finale of Devastation 4 times in one game. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.